So I haven't made a video in quite a long time because this stuff is hard. I'm always impressed by looking at how people put themselves out there on an ongoing basis. It's something I'm going to work at getting better at. But the reason I'm making this video is because a lot of the economic research that I'm currently looking at leads me to believe that there is a real need to have a national conversation around the state of the South African economy, and particularly the South African individual on the street and how they deal with this economy. And one of the outtakes from one of my previous videos talks specifically around the role of productivity. Now, I'm a stern believer based on my own experiences and whatever academic work that I've done, as well as academic stuff that I've consumed, that productivity is pretty much the deal breaker between success and not having success. But it's quite a difficult thing to quantify what productivity is. There's a lot of different measurements, um, and particularly the more wide scale you go. So if you look at individual productivity, you look at company productivity, you look at industry productivity, you look at country and region, etc. The bigger you go, the wider you get, the more various definitions of productivity that you can get. But at an individual level, productivity kind of centers around making progress depending on whatever the goals that you set out for yourselves are. So if the goal is to earn more money or be more productive or more impactful, then that becomes the main productivity measure that you go against. And one of the biggest problems with productivity, particularly in South Africa and I think on the African continent, is that there's not a lot of clarity around what productivity should be. So those individual measures that each individual needs to have, that businesses need to have for themselves, that companies and countries need to have. A lot of the time, what we find when we look at economic research is that there's a lot of different I don't know, that different countries want to follow. So there's always the idea that you want to grow your GDP, maybe that you want to grow your GDP per capita, that you want to fight unemployment, maybe there'll be some standards around poverty, but then there's lots of different impacts on, should happiness be a standard? What about health? What about education? Etc. Etc. And so a lot of the time you find, and this is one of the central issues in South Africa, is that there isn't a centralized goal. And that's really, really important when you want to improve your productivity, is that there has to be maybe a set of one, two, maybe even three numbers that become the underlying standard of what you're going after. And then following on that, there has to be a plan or a vision of how you go about achieving some of these goals. So it has to be almost a two-pronged system. You got to have the vision that says, in the next 5 to 10 years, I would like to see myself, my company, my country achieving XYZ, and then have quite a detailed plan. And it really is about detail. And the reason it's about detail is because it's very good and well to say, in the next year or the next couple of whatever's, there's this that I want to achieve. But all of that has to break down to your daily behavior or daily actions. It has to come to that point where, if you want to lose weight, you've got to be hitting the gym X amount of times a week. You've got to be eating a certain diet plan today, not tomorrow. Like, what am I going to have for breakfast? What am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to eat when I go to sleep? Uh, when I get paid on whatever my payday is, or what do I pay first? How do I invest? Or, what actions specifically do I take? And then it's more around building up those habits, making sure that the plan that you've detailed yourself, that you've set out as a goal, you're tracking it, and that you're going against it. And it's the same for any productive space that you will engage yourself in. You will find a plan, you will find some kind of productivity plan, you will find some kind of daily actions, routines, habits, that have formed the success. That you'll find a business or an institution that tends to really understand itself, it tends to have done a lot of work to understand what the upsides and the downsides look like, and has a pattern of behavior, whether it's monthly meetings that get set down and tasks and objectives that get followed, or it's a daily or a weekly tracker, whatever that productivity tool or instrument is. You're still going to get down to the fundamentals of, you have to know where it is you want to go. You have to know what it is or how it is you think, or you're trying to get to your plan, and then you have to track those things to see, are they working, do they need to be revised, etc., etc. And within the African context, this is becoming more and more crucial for us to understand. So as much as I'm dreading making more videos, and I'm working really hard to try and understand this stuff a little bit better, the idea is we've got to as a nation start having a conversation about what it is we want to do in the long term, and how it is we want to bring the stuff to life. Because to rely on a couple of institutions like government and certain businesses is just to do more of the same stuff we've always done. I think for anyone who's had some kind of work experience or academic experience, or even life experience, over maybe, I'd say, 5-10 years post your matric, or post your college degree, varsity degree, it has to take some kind of stock of where we're going, and start to make some kind of impact, whether it's in your own life as an individual, whether it's about just getting some of our stuff together, or impacting our communities. But mostly, I think we have to be starting to think about the kind of country we want. Do we want a country that's open and inclusive? Do we want one that's shut off and protectionist? Do we want to see ourselves developing towards technology? Do we want to see ourselves developing towards basic industries, building up our mining and agriculture sectors, developing transport? And most importantly, how do we go about impacting some of these things? Do we try to engage with community forums? Do we use social media? Is it universities that we engage with? And what is it as individuals we're willing to do to get some of these conversations rolling? But I think there is a crucial need to start having these conversations become national conversations, stop being about who and what we don't like, and being more around what kind of future do we want for this country, and what will we do kind of on a daily basis to try and make ourselves a little bit better. I think this is a gauntlet I throw to myself more than anybody else, but I think it's also something that I should throw as far and as wide as possible. So I'm going to be trying my best to live up to the words I'm saying. And I'm hopefully can spark a conversation, even better, spark some change.